Hello everybody, welcome to VR365. What is going on? It is Sunday. It is July 26th. Right now it is 10:10 a.m. You know, that is weird. It's 10:10 a.m. You know what's weird about that, Gary? I recently did an interview with Simplex and it was 10:10 p.m. right when we started. So talk about...
There you go. That's another episode of Dark Frequencies for you.
Exactly. Yeah. It proves it. We're in a simulation. It's been confirmed.
Exactly.
Okay. But yeah, so what we're going to do today, guys, is we are going to do a show of VR365. And we're going to talk, of course, about the biggest topic that is on everybody's radar right about now, which, of course, is the Oculus Quest 2, possibly, and everything that goes along with that. But before we talk about that, really quick, I just wanted to briefly mention this, that Gary has written the great American novel. Okay, maybe not American, the great UK novel, The Memory Engine, and it is going to be releasing on August 27th. Pre-orders are available, ladies and gentlemen. You can go to Nook, Apple Books, Amazon Kindle, Rakuten Kobo, and a whole bunch of other places. Gary, what is going on, man? So this is not your first book either, right? You've actually written another book, I believe.
Yeah, I've written 4 before this, but they weren't written under my own name. They were written under a pen name of Ethan Spire. My wife and I just came up with that just at random one day back in 2012 when I first released it. So, yeah, I've written a few different books. This is very different to all of those. This is it's sort of like a light-hearted, it's humorous science fiction, and it's written under my own name this time. So yeah, you can check it out on Amazon and all the other places anyway. So yeah, I'd love for people to read it. It might not be what they're expecting. It's not like a Ready Player One or anything like that, but it's trying to be like a humorous science fiction story. And the problem is, I say humorous and comedic and that kind of stuff, and you think, well, how well is that going to land? You never know. People have different senses of humor and stuff like that. But this is like dry kind of humor, situational. It's not gags or anything like that, and it's not intended to be like a funny book or anything like that. It's focused almost entirely around VR and AR in a sort of semi-futuristic world, really.
Okay, dude, it's awesome just to write a book, period, because a lot of people have thought about, I should write a book. And honestly, I think there's a couple of times where I might have like started typing up, you get inspired for a second about like, yeah, I'm going to write a book. But it's so easy to think that you're going to do that and to write a few pages or maybe even write a chapter, but it's a whole nother ball game to actually see it all the way through to completion, to have like a beginning, a middle, and an end, and to do that whole thing. But when you wrote your very first book ever, was that really hard? And then once you finally finished that book and you've actually done it, now it's like, okay, I know how to do this. I can pump some of these babies out.
Yeah, it's the first one. I mean, it's incredibly. I don't think anybody would ever say that writing a novel, like a novel size book, is easy to do. It's very difficult, and you get past that initial part where you write the first few chapters and you think, okay, I'm really excited about this story that I want to tell. I know where it needs to go and what needs to happen. But once you get into the middle section, that's when most people will stop, and it's just literally just slogging away at that middle section and getting that first draft done, and then going back and trying to do it again. The thing you were saying there, Anthony, though, about once you've done one, you can do it, and it does make the second one probably easier in some ways, but it's not an easy thing to do. I personally don't. I mean, people have said this before, like writing, I don't enjoy it. I really don't enjoy like writing the actual act of writing a book, but I like it when it's finished and it's there and people can read it. I like that part of it, but doing it is difficult, and there's no getting around that really. So, and this is not like, I believe that people say like there's the famous phrase where everybody's got a novel in them, and I do believe that that's true. Everybody can write a novel. It's just sort of having the motivation to push yourself through. You don't need any special skills necessarily. You can, you can always work out all the little problems. Like in my first few books and stuff, I'm not particularly proud of the writing in them or anything like that. I think the stories are good, but I'm not proud of the writing. Even to this day, I'm not proud of them. But they were written 10 years ago now, and I think I'm a better writer now. But the fact is that once you've got that first draft done, no matter how bad it is, you can just keep going back, trying again, just refining it and making it a little bit better. Yeah, I mean, this book, we'll see what people think of it, and it's I think anybody that's a VR enthusiast will get something out of it anyway.
Yeah. When you're done with the book itself, do you then send it? Like, is there any kind of like editor service where you like get an actual editor and you're like signed to a real book publisher that does like physical copies, and like that whole thing is a whole nother ballgame. But I know there's a lot of services now where you can self-publish. It's relatively easy to do it. You could even have a number of books printed if you want to do that, like actual physical copies. I mean, it costs money, but you could do that. But is there like any editing services where you could like send it away to somebody that kind of like does some basic editing on it, or you just feel like, I feel like it's pretty good. Maybe you have a couple of friends read it and it's like, it's good enough.
Yeah, there's so I've had a few of my books professionally edited, which it comes, you have to obviously pay for that. There's different kinds of editing. There's actual narrative editing with the story, or there's sort of proofreading, removing sort of grammatical errors and things like that. So yeah, you can go down that path with this book, because I wrote this. The idea is from a long time ago that I had with this book, but I started writing it probably last year, and then I did a bulk of it during lockdown, actually, when I couldn't go to work, and that's really what's made me finish it. But yeah, you hand it out to this one. So I've handed it out to friends and family, and you can only get so much of feedback from them, because obviously they're not going to say you need to cut out half of the book and completely rewrite it. So you have to pick up on what they're trying to say and that kind of stuff. But it's with this particular book, I've not had it professionally edited. It's gone through various people that I trust, and will give me relatively honest feedback. But yeah, this is a hobby for me. This is not my profession. I do it as a hobby. And I got lucky on my first book that I released. I got lucky for some reason. I don't know why. It must have got picked up somewhere and it started selling. That's what sort of made me write subsequent books based on that. But once you've had that, you then feel like, I can actually write a book. So you sort of gain a little bit of confidence by doing that, really. But yeah, there's various ways of doing this, and I think self-publishing was once considered like vanity publishing. I think now there's some extremely high quality self-published books out there as well.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, man. I mean, you never know. You could be like 58 years old and have a bestseller or something. This could be the beginning of something. You don't know that. So it could be exciting from that standpoint. But either way, it's nice to be creative and have creative outlets and to have something that exists out there. And it's like, yeah, do you get any of these printed physically, like just so you have a couple? Yeah, so that's cool.
Yeah. So with this, the initial, like the pre-order is for ebooks. You can pre-order the ebook everywhere, but you can also, once it's released, the paperback will be released probably on the day as well. So you can pick up a paperback version if you want to, and also the audiobook version is being produced as well. Or it will be once the manuscript is finalised next week. I'll send it off, and the producer is turning it into an audiobook as well.
Are you doing the voice or no?
No, okay. No, I can't do that.
Just do it on YouTube, man. All you have to just go on YouTube. It could be a live stream, a 5-hour live. I don't know how long it would take to read it. You just
but
oh, go ahead.
the audio book will probably be out in around October time, something like that. But yeah.
Oh,
So,
cool. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into the topic at hand. And so, yeah, basically, I mean, one of the main reasons I wanted to get you on this show is everybody has always told me that if anything happens, if Oculus Connect 7 or whatever, try to get Gary on, try to get Steve on, try to have like a VR roundtable reunion and talk about, say, Oculus Connect 7 or different things that happen. And so here we have this like leak that has come out this week. And of course, it has the entire VR gaming world abuzz because let's be real here. Oculus is the #1 VR company on planet Earth. That is just bottom line facts, right? This company is more well positioned to deliver compelling VR hardware than any other company out there. They've got tremendous financial backing. They've got research up the yin yang. They've got tons of incredible personnel that's constantly banging away on this problem. And whenever they release a new product, it's a major thing because one of the things I've always talked about when it comes to all of these products is they're babies basically, and the baby is born once the product goes to the factory and it's been finalized and it's like, okay, this is the final product, and then they start manufacturing it, then it's a done deal. And the thing about that is every time this happens, I'm sure it's very similar to writing a book or making a video game or making a movie. It's never finished. You're never finished, but at a certain point you have to say, okay, you know what, this is good enough. I'm going to say this is done, and then it goes into manufacturing. But I guarantee you, like when the Oculus Go came out, when the CV1 came out, when the Oculus Quest came out, every time this happens, there's probably like all kinds of different things that they wanted to add to it, but at the last minute it gets scrapped. They have to finalize it, and then that's what it is. And then you're basically stuck with whatever that is for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or whatever the life cycle of that product's going to be. And then so now when you get another one, it's an opportunity to get some of those other things that you wanted to get in there and get those things in there. And so it's always interesting. So everybody's excited about this. Like, people don't know absolutely 100% for sure, is this, what is this exactly? So the theory is it's an Oculus Quest 2. And, there's a lot of interesting angles to cover from this, but I thought what we could start off with, Gary, is just kind of the basics of what we did find out with this thing. When you first saw this, or what do you think are some of the basics about this? Like, what did we find out about this thing?
Well, yeah, you learn first of all that it's white this time, so it's sort of mimicking like the Oculus Go kind of aesthetic, really, which is the first thing that hits you on this. But also, obviously, people have pointed out, I don't know how soon you want to get onto the IPD thing, Anthony, but people have pointed out that it's not got the IPD thing, and this is one of the first things that people pick up on. So
wait. Also, let me ask you this, Gary. When you first saw these leaked pictures, like the very first day that it hit, and you like maybe you bounced on some website, you're like, oh wow. When you first looked at it, I mean, most people are like, is it real or is it fake? I'll admit it. Yeah. I said this is fake. This is straight up fake. And so I guess I was wrong. But what did you think when you first saw it?
I didn't necessarily think it was fake, but I didn't clock the IPD thing at all. I just thought, okay, so what the first thing that hit me is this looks remarkably similar to the current Quest. That's the first thing that hit me, and that makes sense. What you were saying earlier in that little introduction to this, Anthony, you were saying like with regards to how they have this design process for the Oculus Quest, the original Oculus Quest, and then they want to refine certain things and do certain things. And it's same with consoles, where they bring out a console and they engineer it to death, but then once it's out, they find things that they can cut corners on, refine things, and that's usually when they bring out like a lighter version. It's got the same functionality, but it's cheaper for them to produce, and perhaps it's not quite got exactly the same functionality in some small aspects of it. We've seen that on Xbox 360, we've seen it on PS3, not necessarily with PS4 or Xbox One.
Even PS2,
but, you know,
if you go back to PS2, the Slim, you know.
yeah, exactly that. So people are sort of swaying on the side of, from most of the talk that I've seen on this on Twitter, most people are saying that, look, this looks like a cheaper version of the Quest. That is what it is going to be, and perhaps a refinement of the Quest in some ways. You were mentioning the 20% lighter, 15% smaller thing, and you know, if they can do that, if they can make it lighter, then that's obviously going to be a bonus. Fluke Roger mentioned in chat a few minutes ago about the fabric band, the fabric head strap, rather than the more sturdy head strap that we've got in the original Quest. That might make that redundant. The fact that it's lighter, you've got a lower quality head strap, might not help too much. But you know, once we get this thing, we can see. But yeah, I mean, we can focus on the IPD thing a little bit if you want to. What did you think of that? Because for me, the IPD, on a personal level, the IPD thing doesn't bother me because I've got sort of a mid-range IPD, so I'll be fine with it. But on the wider context, of course, is this the right decision for them to remove this IPD thing? And I want to just get onto the screen as well later on about this.
Yeah, well, if you want to get into the IPD right this very second, I mean, the good news is it appears that maybe there is some kind of an IPD adjustment, but it's going to be different than any IPD adjustment we've ever seen. Okay, so this image right here is an image that is showing the Gear VR lens, the Rift S lens, the Quest 1 lens, and the Quest 2 lens. Well, we're calling it Quest 2 at this point in time, but it's very obvious when you're looking at it. You can see that one of these is unlike the other, because all of the other ones, it's fixed. It's basically a flat thing, and that's what it is. Now, Quest 2, you look at the way the lens is, and it almost seems like it's in some type of thing that can wobble or move or be adjusted in some sort of way. It's like it's in some kind of physical container thing that might be like, it looks very different than the other three. And then, of course, if you look really close at the lens and you look a little bit into the middle there, you can see there's a digit that has number 2 on it. And a lot of people are speculating that there might be, say, 3 different settings that this headset is going to have from an IPD standpoint. Possibly 2 might be right in the middle. That might be the native IPD. You might be able to pop it to 3 and pop it back to 1. And so, you know, there's like 3 different IPD settings. So it might not be a total complete disaster from an IPD standpoint. Gary, did you, like, at first everybody was like obviously really up in arms about this, but then now that we have seen these images like maybe a day later or whatever, and people are like, oh, wait a minute, there might be IPD. Did you see this, and what did you think about that?
Yeah, I did see it, and I think as well, I heard some people speculating that this could possibly be eye relief rather than IPD adjustment as well. We don't know what that number 2 means. So there's a possibility that it could move the lenses in and out rather than side to side in order to get a better field of view and that kind of stuff. We don't know what that number 2 means. The only thing I'll say with regards to this, I will be, and I mentioned this on Twitter, but I'll be amazed if this has not got a single screen in it. And that would mean that it would be a fixed IPD with software IPD adjustment, because I think shortly after or shortly before the Oculus Quest first came out, John Carmack did a talk or a tweet or something. He mentioned something at one point and it might have been Oculus Connect actually where he said this. He said that if they had designed the Oculus Quest later on, around the time when they had designed the Rift S, it would have had a single screen. The simple fact is, at the time when they were getting the manufacturing pipeline going, they had settled on this design of having two separate OLED screens, which allowed for an IPD adjustment. But he said that if it had come later, they wouldn't have had that.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense that this would be a single screen device.
And also, that's a great example for like once the baby is born, it's a done deal. And like 5 months later, you come up with other stuff. Maybe your hand tracking would have been way better. Maybe your pass through would have been way better. But the baby has been born. It's being manufactured. It's a done deal, right? But yeah, that's an interesting point that you bring up. One of the things that I'm reading over here on one of the websites, it's talking about the Rift S lenses in terms of that fixed IPD. And it says Facebook has claimed that it's best for users between 61.5 and 65.5 millimeters, which apparently equates to around 46% of men and 43% of women in the largest publicly available IPD data set. So now your IPD, you're in that range, right? Are you, or what is your IPD?
Yeah, it's around, normally when I set it like on the valve index, it's sort of on the smaller side. It's around sort of 60, between 62 and 63 usually. So yeah.
So you're right in the sweet spot pretty much. And then John Pro in chat says, I have an IPD of 70 and I still use Rift S fine. Okay, John Pro, you know what's that's called? It's called placebo effect. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I have an IPD of 70/71, like borderline between 70 and 71. Oh, and Draken67 says, I'm at 71 and same here. No problem with the Rift S. Man, I don't know. I mean, I guess you guys really don't have a problem with the Rift S, but like I bought a Rift S and decided I'm going to use a Rift S. I'm going to try to hopefully see if it'll work for me. And worst case, if it doesn't, I just go ahead and send it back to Amazon. And I got one. Now, I didn't have a problem with like blurriness or like a scale problem or any of the things that you normally hear about when it comes to IPD. The problem I had is the field of view. To me, the field of view felt like it was squeezed in. So like I was losing FOV. And like if we had Michael Abrash or anybody on here that's like really technical about it, they will tell you that as your IPD gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the native IPD is much smaller than that, then yeah, you're just going to lose field of view. That's just simply the reality of it. And if your IPD is incredibly small, you're going to have an arbitrarily bigger FOV as well, but you're also going to have other problems that come along with that.
What about so say like one of the most successful VR headsets that came out, the PSVR? Okay, that's got fixed IPD, it's got software adjustment. The difference now, I hear conflicting things about this. The lenses on the PSVR, some people will say it's got a huge sweet spot. Some people will say it's got a very small sweet spot. I don't know where I necessarily fall on that. It seems, it seems fine to me. But the difference is, so some people have commented that if it's got a fixed IPD on the Quest, this new version of the Quest, if they've got different lenses with a larger sweet spot, you'll still fall under the bracket where you're going to reduce IPD field of view, sorry. But if it's got a bigger sweet spot, you won't necessarily get blurring if you've got a very small IPD or a very large IPD, and that could sort of mitigate some of the problems that they have. The thing is as well, I understand your point about field of view, because field of view is important, but it's not the most important thing just to get VR out to the masses. So if a certain number of the population have a very large IPD, but they're still getting a clear image with a reduced field of view, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world as far as probably Oculus or Facebook consider it. So with the lenses, I don't know if you saw this, Anthony, on some of the discussions as well. People were saying it looks like different lenses on this Quest rather than the original one, which from the pictures it does look like different lenses.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different possibilities here, and like when it comes to a VR headset and all the different variables you're considering, and every decision that you make is going to have consequences. Some of them negative, like you go with a bigger eye box, you get a smaller FOV. You go with a smaller eye box, you get a bigger. There's going to be trade-offs in every which way that you go. The bottom line, though, and this is like a little dirty secret in the VR industry, I think, that no one really talks about, is like when you are an outlier from an IPD standpoint, whether you're really way out there in the 70s or you're in the high 50s, either side of the coin, although I think if you have an even bigger IPD, you actually get screwed a little bit more than the people with much smaller ones. But either way, you are going to have a bit of a compromised experience. Now, the question is it going to be a compromised experience that is even noticeable? Like the vast majority of people, for example, a couple people in chat, their IPD's 70, 71, they're saying the Rift S is absolutely fine for them. I get one and it's like, oh, hell no, this ain't going to work for me because my FOV just got shrunk to 95 degrees. So you're going to have these trade-offs. But one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize here is even if there is a physical IPD slider, it's still not ideal. Like if the native IPD is 64.5 or 63.5, the person that has a legit, their IPD is actually 63.5, that is the person that is going to have the least amount of compromises in this situation. But like the valve index, okay, it skews pretty wide, and so I can use my valve index, I can set it to 70, which might be like my IPD, but it's not the same as if that headset had a native IPD of 70. It's not the same because the binocular overlap, there's a lot of little factors that come into play. I've noticed a tremendous amount of glare in the valve index. A lot of people don't notice the glare, and I believe that it could be very possible that when you have a larger IPD, because the glare for me, it swings around the bottom. Like, it's almost like, when shadows, like when a car drives by and the shadow goes, it's like it's swinging around the bottom. Yeah. And I think by having my IPD, I'm more spread out. I think that anomaly is it's more obvious. Where if my IPD was really small and I'm more kind of up in there, maybe I don't see that as much. It's not as noticeable. So I feel like even if there is a slider, I think you're being compromised here. The question I want to ask you though, Gary, and this might seem crazy, but longer term, like 5-10 years from now, don't you think it's a key factor that eventually we need to figure this thing out? Because if people aren't getting an ideal experience, they're not going to have the same kind of presence that somebody else is going to have. They're getting a watered down, you give an Oculus Go to somebody that is an IPD of 73 and they just put it on and they're like, they don't know anything about anything. So they don't know that it's wrong for them or anything. And so they're using the Oculus Go and they're like, yeah, this is cool, but I don't know. It's just not as, like, I don't feel like I'm like there as much. But you give that same Oculus Go to somebody with a 63 IPD and they don't know anything about this at all. And for them, that experience is more immersive, more powerful. One of the things I've talked about is like, will we ever see a day where you don't make a one-size-fits-all headset? Or maybe what you do is, like, let's say the IPD is 63.5 natively. Okay, so 85% of the headsets that you make are 63.5. But you also have a large and a small that are only available on the website. You have to order it direct on the website. You don't go to Amazon or Best Buy and get that one. They have the standard one there, but you can order it online through Oculus. Maybe there's an extra, maybe you're paying another $100 for it. You know, maybe there's an upcharge for it. Could we ever do that, or is that just ridiculous?
Sounds like Magic Leap 1, what they did, because they had a smaller size and a bigger size, didn't they? But not necessarily with the optics. It was more the headband. But yeah, so I think in the future they will figure this stuff out. It's not going to be like this forever. The problem they've got is that I think they're trying to balance the fact that they need to get a reasonably priced, actually quite low priced product out there with the technology they've got available to them today. There's no doubt they'll figure this out in 10 years' time. The optics we're seeing today in today's headsets are going to be radically different, I believe, in 10 years' time, and they will sort all of these problems out. On this particular one, I think it has to be the fact I can't see it having two separate screens. It's going to have a single screen, and that would mean that it will have a fixed IPD. And that's the problem. They're facing wanting to keep this product relatively cheap while keeping the experience relatively high, but not quite as high as if it had a movable IPD. The thing is as well, how many people, from their point of view, I understand like the frustration if you've got a large IPD or a very small IPD and you've not got this adjustment to dial in your experience perfectly. That's a completely valid opinion to have, and a very frustrating one if you do fall in those brackets. From Oculus's and Facebook's point of view, what do they see? What do they see from the general population? Even if they can't satisfy, say, 30% of people because they fall outside of this amount, will the percentage of those 30% actually be high enough to complain about it? Maybe they won't even know, they won't even care. A majority of them, of course, like VR enthusiasts, they will care. I don't think most people will, and that's why it has to be a single screen. It's going to be a fixed IPD with software adjustment, I believe, which I don't think it's the right decision. I think it's the decision they have to make.
Well, what you're basically saying here is that Oculus, when they decided to make this headset that they're coming out with, they decided that it's a price thing, right? This is all about price. So they want to get their price down. You know, they want to get their price down to $299 or whatever. But my question with it is like, is that the right choice? Like, should they be thinking about price right now? Because if you consider the regular Oculus Quest that we have, that's $399 and $499. It's sold out, right? I mean, it always sells out. It comes in stock and it's gone. It comes in stock and it's gone. Zuckerberg, when he's done his various presentations to stockholders, has said that the only thing he's disappointed with about the Oculus Quest is that they can't keep up with demand. They can't make enough of them, and that they've left money on the table by not having enough of a supply for it. So to me, if you haven't even satiated demand at $399 and $499, why are you going for price? Because I always thought that when it came to the Oculus Quest, the number one thing that needs to happen for that headset is comfort. You talk to everybody always says, "Oh, I love the Oculus Quest, but..." And it's a comfort thing. It's like, I love the Oculus Quest, but after about 40 minutes, I stop playing it. I mean, it's like a broken record. I don't know how many times I've heard, it's like people love the Oculus Quest, but then you bring up the idea of comfort, they're like, yeah, that's the problem. Yeah. And people, get different devices to try to improve the comfort. But even people that get these aftermarket devices, like, it seems like it just makes it a little bit more bearable. Comfort has not been there. And when we look at the pictures of, like, this is why I thought it was fake. I was like, no, this is fake. There's no way this is real. That looks exactly like a regular Quest. We know, I mean, not exactly, but damn, 90% of the way of a regular Quest, right? And if, like, think of the shell of a regular Quest. Like, I have a regular Quest back over there. And imagine if I just had a shell of it that was empty, but it was just the physical shell, the footprint, the size of it that it takes up, right? And then you have this brand new one. You put them side by side. I mean, the form factor of what it looks like, I mean, just from what I can see in pictures, and that's limited. You got different angles. Sometimes it can be confusing or misleading. But just based on all of that, it looks so similar to the original Quest, which is not comfortable. So like I'm really worried that the comfort problem still isn't going to be solved here. And I thought that was the number one problem, not price.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, and it is the number one problem. I agree. I think it is. But if it's, if it is 20% lighter, and yeah, I'm not convinced by the comfort thing either. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate there. But yeah, I'm not convinced by the fact that this is going to be the comfort standalone model that we all want. However, I will say, just going back to your first point there, Anthony, about like the price thing, this is not necessarily them saying we want to make a cheaper Quest. They also want to, there's two sides of this. I think they also just want to refine the manufacturing process and make it easier for them to manufacture these Quests. You said it at the beginning, they can't keep up with the demand. Whereas if you've got a simpler designed Oculus Quest, which is got a single screen, no IPD adjustment, can be manufactured with the pipeline is much simpler to manufacture that device rather than the original Quest, then that in itself is worthwhile for them to do, especially if they can make it cheaper as well, as part of that. I think that falls into it as well.
Yeah, making it cheap. I mean, I don't know. It's just the whole cheaper thing. Like having an individual screen and not having a legitimate IPD adjustment, like that tells me they're going for cheap, that they're trying to lower the price, or if they're really being greedy, they're trying to like get more profits, which this is not the time to do that. This is this is the time to evangelize VR and to like have a product that you're making no money on. You're maybe losing $100 off almost every one of these that you sell, but you've got your store, you've got your ecosystem, and you're trying to build out this marketplace. And so going for low cost just seems like the wrong move. Now
the other Sorry, Anthony, just to interrupt, but the other thing to keep in mind with this is what we mentioned. It might have been in the pre-show, but we were talking about how this is the Quest is a year old, and they're bringing this out probably in September or so, or they're announcing it. So as far as the rumors are concerned, it's a year old. I mean, I don't think that they're looking at, if they're bringing a product out which is a year after the first one, it has to so closely mesh with that first one so as not to discourage people from, feeling like they've purchased a dud. Yeah, really. This is something I've mentioned on your show before. Like, I can't see Oculus replacing the Quest within a year, 2 years even.
Why is it called Quest? Why is it called Quest 2 though? Why would it's like project
I
name?
I know.
That's crazy.
It is.
Well, Gary, I mean, speaking to that, like that is a really great topic there. I love this topic because if you are in the VR community like I am, and you're on Discord servers and you're on Reddit and things like that, so many people are like when they first saw this, they're like, yeah, double the resolution, much better Snapdragon. They're like, yeah, we're going to now have a new level of visual quality. And I want to reach through the internet and strangle these people. I really do, because here's the thing. Look, I am a hardcore enthusiast. I love this stuff. Do I want a new Quest that is 2880 by 2880 per eye and has freaking dual Snapdragons running simultaneously? Hell yes, I want that. But at the same time, I'm also somebody that has been a video game fan since the dawn of time, and I know that when you are trying to create a mass market product, you don't give an F about the enthusiasts. There's not enough enthusiasts to make this successful. There's like 10,000 enthusiasts around the world, or maybe 50,000 if we're stretching it. That is not enough to. Oculus doesn't give a damn about 50,000 people. They don't give a damn about 200,000 people. They want to get into the millions, the 10 millions, the 20 millions. And this idea of like, the graphics aren't good enough, man. We need better graphics. It needs to be closer to PC VR. You're out of your mind, in my opinion. The Oculus Quest to me is a Nintendo Switch. Is Nintendo going to come out with a a new Switch that has entirely new processors and stuff with entirely new games that don't work on the previous Switch? Gary, why doesn't Nintendo do that every year? Are they crazy?
Yeah, I can't. I don't know. It's. I think from my point of view is that it seems strange that Oculus are trying to do this when other companies don't really go for this angle. One thing, this will make you angry, Anthony. Here's a little side note as well. So supposing what I'm saying, like, so this is a single screen device, okay? Now, if it's a single screen device, it will probably use the same screen that is in the Rift S. Okay, now that's an 80 hertz screen. The original Oculus Quest runs at 72 hertz. So what about, and this is going to make you angry, what about if it does have a Snapdragon 845 rather than an 835? Now, I did a little bit of cursory Googling earlier on yesterday, just to see the difference in cost to Facebook if they were to purchase like per unit 845 over 835, and apparently it's around about, there's no way of knowing if this is accurate, but it's around about $15 increase in price for the 845 to the 835. So supposing they have this single screen, it runs at a native 80 hertz, they need to then push all the same games at that 80 hertz native, which are running at 72 hertz on the original Oculus Quest. Is it possible that they could then fit the new Quest with an 845 at almost, an absorbable cost extra in order to push that extra frame rate? What do you think? It's a theory. It's random.
Yeah, that's very possible. And yeah, if you did, like, in my opinion, like having a higher end Snapdragon. See, it just goes back to the idea. Well, you mentioned it earlier that people get irritated when they buy something and they expect to get 2-3 years out of it, and then all of a sudden, already, just go to the Oculus Quest subreddit. There's some people that are devastated by this news because they just bought an effing Quest. They saved up a lot of, not everybody just goes to the store and buys a $500 item and it's like no freaking big deal. Some people are like, well, I'm going to save $50 this month. I'm going to save $100 this month. Then I just got my tax refund. And so now I've got enough money. I'm going to go, because they got all kinds of other things going on. They've got mortgages. They've got car payments. They've got student loans. They've got kids of their own. And not everybody can just buy everything willy-nilly. I know there's a lot of wealthy people out there that they've already ordered their Reverb G2 and they can't wait. They want all this stuff. They're getting all of it. They're buying a PlayStation. Dude, there's people right now. I bet you there's someone in chat right now, or when this goes on YouTube, there's going to be somebody that watches this that is buying a PlayStation 5. They're buying a Reverb G2. They're buying whatever the hell this is the day it comes out. And if something else gets announced, they're buying that too. But the vast majority of people out there are not in that type of situation. Some people have to save up for this stuff. And there is something about you want to have a life cycle with something. Like if a mom goes and buys a Nintendo Switch today, or an Oculus Quest today, she's thinking that that's going to last for like 3 years. And her kid isn't going to be crying about a new one in 3 years. And so the idea of going to new Snapdragons and having a new level of game quality, like new textures and stuff like that, there's so many people, so many enthusiasts that are like, no, man, new phones every year, man. This is what we do. And the phone thing, I think, is just absolutely ridiculous analogy that does not work at all. It is not comparable in any way, shape, or form. What do you think about all of?
I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me just comment quickly on that, because I agree. I think mobile phones, you use them all the time, every day. There's no comparison between having a mobile phone and a games console effectively, because the mobile phone is there, it's in your pocket constantly. A games console is different to that. And I think that the strangest thing to me, and obviously I've not got the level of insight that people at Facebook have got or Oculus have got with this stuff, but to me, they're setting a precedent by releasing this. If they release this later this year, to me, they're setting a precedent that every year there's going to be a new Quest, which I personally think is a mistake. I think they need to set a precedent of it being 2 possibly even 3 years. And as much people will probably complain about that, and I can understand that because we all want the new latest and greatest thing. When people buy this thing in 2 years' time and it's still got a Snapdragon 835, they're going to say this processor is like 5-6 years old now. Why are we still operating on this processor when better ones are out there? I understand that, but at the same time, this is a complete product which needs to set a precedent for life cycle. And if they're set a precedent for 1 year, 18 months, personally, I think that's a mistake, but they've obviously made their decisions based on other things.
But this is a Quest 1.5 though. I mean, this is like, this is a Quest Slim or whatever. I mean, I think we can kind of agree on. There might be a few people out there that still don't believe that and are really hoping it's going to be XR2 and it's going to have all this other stuff. I think they're out of their minds. But we believe this is a 1.5. But do you think just coming out with a 1.5 every other year, that's a problem as well? Or do you think that kind of sidesteps the problem?
I think if the problem is, I treat the Quest as a console, and historically you look at consoles, people want to invest in an ecosystem and think that console is going to last a while, as you mentioned. And consoles have added like a light version, an S version, whatever you want to call it, a few years after release. I think the problem is with this, it's so soon. They're iterating so soon on it. It's first of all, it's going to confuse consumers, and also it makes people hesitant to buy one when it's 6 months old because they think the new one's around the corner. So I just have a problem with that kind of stuff. With mobile phones, it's different. As I said, it's different with those kinds of products. With the Quest, which is a console, it's not a mobile phone. You use it when you want a bit of entertainment. It's not used in daily life, and that's the difference.
Let me ask you this. So, like, when all this announcement came out, and like maybe you might have thought it was fake, well, I thought it was fake, but at the very beginning, but then as more and more pictures come out, September 15th, like, we know that something's happening here. This is a real thing, right? Did you start to, like, yourself personally, because you bought a Quest last year, May 21st or 28th or whatever day it came out, right? You got a Quest right away. You were excited about it. You've enjoyed your Quest. You've had a lot of fun with your Quest. You might even use your Quest more than you use some of your other headsets, just on the pure convenience factor of it. But then now we get this information. Was there any part of you that was like, I call it the crunchy. It's like you feel crunchy. You feel this like, oh, why? Because I feel it already. You know what I found out? The controllers. The controllers make me feel more crunchy than anything, because I heard that, because it's like, I don't really give a damn that much about this new Quest. Like, it's not going to have an IPD adjust probably, or maybe it's going to be, hamstrung in that way. And like, I don't know that that's going to bother me that much. But like, one of the things that we found out about these controllers, so this is a slightly new controller. We heard, of course, about the Jedi controllers. A lot of people ran off to the races with that news and was like, oh, this is Control Labs. We're going to have a wrist thing going around our wrists. It's going to be analyzing our wrist muscles. This is going to be super advanced. This Jedi controller, when they first found out about that. No, This is a regular controller, but it's different. Like, the stem that you actually hold seems to be different than the touch, than Touch 2, basically. It seems a little more similar to Touch 1. Supposedly, this is going to have, like, the pulse of the, I forget what they call it, but it's doubling from 30 hertz to 60 hertz. So the tracking, and then also, of course, we can talk about the positions of the cameras that are on the external cameras on the headset for tracking the controller. So these controllers are probably going to be a pretty significant improvement over the standard touch controllers and over like Rift S controllers. The battery compartment is probably not going to accidentally pop off every time this time. Hopefully they've gone to different plastics, although if they are going the dirt cheap route, maybe they're not. But how many times have you been in the Oculus subreddit and you see somebody's broken controller ring, because they accidentally banged it against the wall? They're obviously using cheaper plastics. But then also the haptics, like the rumble, that is kind of a thing, because I've bounced back and forth from the various touch controllers and then been playing a PlayStation VR game with those Move controllers, and the Move controllers are crappy in every regard, but the one thing they do is their rumble is a little bit more, the rumble has more kick to it because it's a bigger controller, it's heavier, and so these might have improved haptics as well. That makes me jealous. But dude, I got the 124 gig Quest. I paid more money, which was a dumb idea. I don't know why I ever did that. And I got this Franken-Mod. I got these covers for it and everything. Think about that. You order a VR cover. It's not gonna. This is 20% or 15% smaller. It might not fit it right. Oh man, it's crunchy. Are you feeling crunchy?
A little bit. I think. If this comes out like this year, I think I might pick one up. I'm hesitant because people will say like as we sort of alluding to, it's probably a lower price, slightly less functional, very slightly less functional version of the original Quest. And why would I do that? Well, I want the comfort. That's the number one thing, and I don't know if it's going to provide that extra comfort or not. However, I will say, like, for me, it's mainly my kids that use the Quest at the moment, and it's not that I don't want to. I do. It's just that I think content is a little bit lacking on the Quest, in all honesty. But I've just not really used it a great deal. So part of my hesitancy comes from the fact that if I'm not using it enough, what's the point in getting this new version, really? And my kids are happy with this one, so maybe I'll leave that. The crunchy thing is you want the latest and greatest, and that's what this is probably. People will say it's not the greatest. The original Quest is the greatest. I still want that comfort. The number one thing is comfort, and if this can provide that, then that would make it the greatest for me, even in spite of no IPD.
Yeah, well, one thing regarding the comfort, I was just looking at these pictures right here, and when you see the black face gasket, okay, like the headset is white, and you see that, like, especially in this image right here, it looks very thick. Like, I think if anybody is going to suffer from this thing, it's VR covers. Because you know what Oculus might have decided to do here is like, okay, we're going to make it 20% lighter. We're going to make it 15% smaller, but we're not going to put the battery on the back or the compute on the back or anything like that. So it's not a complete redesign. But here's how we can help our comfort a little bit. Let's have a real deluxe, thick, cushiony face pad, face gasket that comes standard with this thing, and that could help comfort a lot. But man, VR I mean, it's not going to stop VR covers. They're going to bring out they're going to have their adapters regardless, and they're going to have covers for it. But do you think it might be a thicker, do you think they might try to improve the comfort kind of in that standpoint?
It definitely looks thicker, and that would benefit, because I don't know if you feel the same, Anthony, but when you put on the original Oculus Quest, I get pressure on my forehead, and it feels like a narrow line of pressure as well. So if they've sort of expanded it out and made it sort of spread that load over sort of a wider area with the gasket, then that would be welcome as well. I think that will help comfort. The other thing, just going back to Fleet Rogers' original point about the strap as well, that's not a good look on this device. I don't like the fabric strap. I didn't really like it on the Oculus Go. I think what they did with the original Quest was great, because it looks more like a quality product with that rigid strap, and just having a fabric strap does nothing for me at all. This is probably one of the worst things that I'm seeing from this.
You know what it is, Gary? It's like the strap and potentially lack of IPD that immediately jumps out at you. This is a cost thing, like when they announced this. So September 15th, we've heard about this date, right? I don't believe like September 15th, it's at Best Buy, go ahead, pick it up. I don't think that's going to happen. I think September 15th is going to be the presentation day, like the online thing they announce this, and then maybe like late November or something they start hitting, or you can pre-order it now, and it's going to arrive sometime in mid-November or something like that, because they're going to need a number of months. I mean, I know it's supposedly going into mass production later this month, but you know, they need a number of months to like kind of pool that supply together. God, where was I going with this? I had something I was going to say. Oh, but it just seems like so maybe with their announcement, they're like, yes, and we've got a new Quest, and guess what, ladies and gentlemen, $299.90. You know, so a big giant black screen behind them, $299.99. We've been able to trim $100 off this price, which is going to open it up to a larger market. But I have to go back to this original discussion. Gary, if you're in the boardroom, if you're working for Facebook Reality Labs, and you're in the boardroom, and everybody's sitting around, and they're having a brainstorm session about what do we do with this Quest upgrade? What are we going for? What is the strategy here? It seems like they're going like cost, and again, I don't get the cost angle. They can't even sell, like they haven't satiated their entire demand. Now of course, Oculus internally, they're going to know more about this than we do, and they know about when they get a new shipment of 100, you know, I mean, they get a couple 100,000 Quests that come from China, and then those are in stock, how quickly those go out, and maybe that started to slow down a little bit. And so they're thinking maybe price is starting to become a factor, but is this where you go with this? I think you go comfort, and they didn't go comfort, in my opinion. 20% 20% lighter, is 20% lighter? Is that even noticeable? Because don't you remember? Okay, remember the first Vive, right? The very first Vive, and at some point, they secretly started making Vives that were like 17% lighter. No one even knew it. Like, no one knew it. Like, I don't think, I think you give somebody two Quests, and it's like, put this one on. Okay, put this one on. It's not going to be like, put this one on. Oh, whoa, this is so much lighter. I don't think 20% does that for you. I think maybe 33% does.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I remember that Vive thing as well. Yeah, because I didn't try any of the iterated versions of the Vives where they were lighter. But yeah, it's a good point. Maybe 20% isn't enough, especially with a fabric strap. The other thing with the comfort, do you wonder, because people mention this all the time about how they could put the battery on the back of the headset or something like that. Is there a good reason? Most people will point to the fact that people want to lie back in bed with it and watch something on Netflix or something like that, and that's why they don't want to put a battery on the back of the headset. But you know, people bring this up time and time again, and it's a little bit frustrating, because you think that could make all the difference in terms of comfort just by having a rigid strap, the battery in a nice, elegant way mounted on the back of the headset. What do you think is the reason they don't do that?
I think it's primarily, okay, so sofa, you're sitting in a sofa, you're sitting in a lazy boy recliner, or you're you're laying in bed a little bit, like you're at a hotel, or I mean, remember, this is a portable, I mean, it's thought of as a portable device. You take it anywhere. And I think for Facebook, maybe part of this is they do want to kind of sell these things to soccer moms and to people that aren't necessarily the hardest of hardcore gamers, and they're oftentimes going to be sitting as they're playing, and maybe they do want to lean back. I mean, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous to think that all you have to do is sacrifice this idea of leaning your head back and relaxing against some type of cushion or whatever. And if you're willing to let that go, then now you can have the battery on the back. Maybe you could put part of the compute on the back, and you can make this front section very ergonomic and comfortable. And then that back section, that back part has the weight. The weight is there. So now you've created this entire balanced thing that is going on. And so you can really have comfort, similar to kind of like the Valve Index has that comfort of that really nice balance of the weight on the front and the back. But another factor here as well is, again, this is supposedly portable, right? And so you take it with you. Now, if you got the battery pack on the back, does it fit in little bag? Like, it's like, see, the nice thing about the Go strap and even the Quest strap, even though it's a little bit more rigid and plasticky, it's a little more rigid than the Go one. The Go one, you could just squish that strap into nothing. You could squeeze it into a very small bag. Like I have my Oculus Go. I had my Oculus Go in a tiny little bag because you could really squeeze it down in there. And so if you put the battery or compute or anything on the back, now you can't put it in a small bag and take it places. But even those, as those are the two primary things that people might think about, it's like to sacrifice those two things to have a ginormous improvement in comfort. Of course, we could add in a third option, cost. Manufacturing that, it's probably much cheaper just to have a singular thing that rather than these two primary pieces that are being manufactured.
Yeah, and gaming science teacher brought up a point as well, because this is something that people have mentioned, where if they were to have either the compute unit or the battery on the back of the headset, they have to run power or cabling over the strap, which in itself is, it's not an unengineerable problem to get past, but it could open itself up to sort of issues, damaging issues, like if you were to accidentally knock it or something like that, it could cause problems with the cabling inside. So it's a valid point. I just think that the advantages of that, because in the original version, when they first shown Santa Cruz, it had the compute unit on the back of the headset. I know it was just a prototype, but that's how they shown it, and it just looked like a great way of having that there. So yeah, it seems a shame to me, and it seems like the number one thing that they could to easily improve comfort, but at the same time they've obviously got their reasons. They've obviously thought about this for doing it the way that they are doing it. So yeah, you can't question it too much, I suppose.
One aspect that kind of sucks here is that we've just got this one company, Oculus. I mean, we really have one company, right? That where's the Pepsi to this Coke? Because it's like, it would be nice if there was another major company that was really involved in this category that was like, no, we're going a different direction. We're putting the battery on the back, so that there would be like this contrast where it's like, oh, they decided to do that. That's the better way. And then Oculus is like, okay, yeah, let's change our mind. That actually was the smarter way to do it. But they're by themselves. They don't have any, like in the standalone area, there's nobody that is threatening them right at this point in time, although there are a lot of competitors that are on the horizon that could possibly be factors, and Oculus has to think ahead. Going back, so we both agree that this is most likely a 1.5, so you're going to play the exact same games. So everything is basically like the actual experience of being in a game and the gameplay of a game is basically going to be identical. Yeah, this one might have a little bit better rumble or something like that, and the controllers might track a little bit better when you're playing games where you're going way behind your head and things like that. But for the most part, it's going to be an identical experience. It's going to be DS Lite and DS Fat, basically. But one of the things I mentioned earlier, Gary, was this idea that when your baby is born, when it goes to the factory and it's been finalized, it's locked in stone. But like 8 months after that, you might have figured out a much better way to have the cameras or the pass-through, these little tiny things like that. My question for you regarding that is, you don't want to screw things up and create a situation of the haves and the have-nots. But at the same time, does Oculus want to squeeze a few of these improvements into this 1.5? Do you think they're going to try to do that, like the pass-through? We can go back and take a look at some of these images. I should have grabbed an image that shows the top cameras much better, because they're in a very much different, like those top cameras feel like they're really up there, and I want, like, that image right there is probably the best example of it. But what does this do to like pass through? Do they improve the hand tracking? Is the hand, do they improve, like what do they do with any of these other things? Is the link now going to have a different, like I don't know, is that the exact same link plug from a standpoint of could they do a mini HDMI where instead of having any compression at all, you're getting a pure signal from the computer if you want to connect it to a computer? What do you think about like these little improvements that could possibly be squeezed in?
Yeah, well, the link thing is an interesting one because they must be working behind the scenes on something, on some kind of headset which will connect wirelessly. I think that's sort of the goal that they would love to get to at some point. I don't think this is the device to do that, but maybe they could have added something in there in terms of the Wi-Fi chips and stuff like that, which will offer a better performance in Wi-Fi. They could have added that. We don't know that kind of stuff. With regards to your point about like the haves and the have-nots, I don't think this is going to suffer from that problem. Because this will be able to do everything that the original Quest can do, not a lot extra as far as I can see. The thing is, part of me, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about it as if I'm absolutely positive this is going to be lower cost, lower, a refined version of the original Quest, which is probably going to be slightly lower version in overall. And I'm not confident necessarily enough in that to say it's 100% that. But looking at all the evidence we're seeing here, it's got to be that, hasn't it?
The strap. I mean, I think that all you got to do is look at the strap. Like, if this was not a low cost thing, would they have that strap? I don't think so. I don't think they have that strap if this is if this wasn't low cost. So I believe,
No, so I'll just say, just to say what I think this is. This is literally a refined version of the Oculus Quest and nothing more. So there will be no haves and have-nots with this device. It will operate in an identical way. It'll access all the same software.
Okay, but there is haves and have-nots. When you consider the controllers, I mean, it's not going to be like it's not a big enough have-not where somebody's like, oh my God, they got controller 3.9 and I got the old ass controller.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I can't play that game because I don't have that new controller. But this controller supposedly, like, the frequency is like double. You know what I mean? In terms of like the what do you call it? I can't remember what they call it, but
the hertz.
Yeah, the hertz,
the camera
basically.
refresh rate. Yeah,
exactly. So it's pulsing at 60 hertz instead of 30. That's not really a have-not too much. The rumble, though, it's like, oh, this one rumbles way better. Like those kind of things are probably things that, like, no one's going to be too up in arms about that. What about this, though? I've heard other people say, well, hey, maybe with this new Quest 1.5, full color pass through, baby. It's about time. Let's get some color in there. Would that be a have and have not? If, like, you go to your buddy's house, he's got this Quest, you put it on, and you're like, oh shit, everything's in color, man. This sucks. I need a new one.
Not enough. It's not enough because the pass-through is used as a functional thing. It's not used for like enhancing any entertainment value, as far as I can see. So I don't even think that's really worth bothering about. Hand tracking is going to be probably a bigger thing if they can sort of refine that. And so there was just a comment just saying you don't think it'll have a beefier Snapdragon. And again, gut feeling is saying no. I still think it will have an 835, but it's possible they could and use that extra processing power to help with hand tracking, which I think is going to be a big deal for them in the future.
They could also, like, I could envision at some point in the future where you have like some type of co-processor, so the hand tracking has nothing to do, with, but that might be a legit Quest 2.0, which we don't think that this is probably that.
They said as well, I mean, I think when they brought out hand tracking, they mentioned something saying that basically didn't interfere with any processing that was going on, because they sort of sourced it from a different area or something. I don't really know. I don't know the details, the technical details on that, but I'm sure they said that the hand tracking has been achieved in this special way where it doesn't necessarily sort of interfere with other processing for rendering games and stuff like that. But I don't know enough about it, really.
Yeah, but let's go back to the hand tracking real quick, because like one of the things I've thought of is if you come out with a new quest, because I got to imagine they were able to get hand tracking running on this existing quest, and I think that was more of like, wow, it kind of works on this existing quest, and it works good enough that I think we can push this out now. But now that they got the 1.5, it's like obviously they've got improvements in cameras, like things have improved since the last quest came out, since it was finalized and it went through production. There's always things that are going to improve a little bit that might be hardware based, where they're like, well, we can sneak this better camera into this one. And now hand tracking, for example, one of the hand tracking situations that I'll bring up is I've got a lot of lights going on in here, and I've mentioned this a number of times. I got a lot of lights in this room, but I don't have any windows in this room. I don't have any natural sunlight coming into this room anywhere. And one thing I've noticed was that with the hand tracking is I'll use my quest and I'm playing Waltz of the Wizard or Elixir or something like that, and it's working for the most part. But every once in a while, I'll get a message like, you don't have enough light in this room. I'll get some little errors, or like it breaks up a little bit. It doesn't work quite right. And what I was thinking is, well, whenever we have a new quest, like they could probably improve that in a major effing way. But then would you consider that a have and have not? For example, you got one person that has this new quest, they're playing Waltz of the Wizard. Now you can play Waltz of the Wizard too, and they both have hand tracking, and for the most part it's parity is pretty much there. But if you happen to go over his house and you happen to use his quest and you're playing Waltz of the Wizard, you might notice, wow, I'm moving, this works way better. Like you might notice it because you've been playing Waltz of the Wizard a long time, but like your average Joe Blow ain't gonna notice any difference at all. Do you think that is something that could be sneaked in? Or do you think that would be problematic possibly?
No, I think they could do that. And that's, to me, again, it's not a situation of the haves and have-nots with that, because I think that most people, as far as Facebook and Oculus are concerned, won't care about that. They'll have the experience that they have, and that's it. There will be people, enthusiasts, that want to dive deeper with that. The other aspect of that, actually, Anthony, is latency. So on hand tracking, there's noticeable latency at the moment on the Oculus Quest with hand tracking. Whereas if they had like a co-processor, as you suggest, or like, a bigger processor built into it, then they could perhaps reduce that latency side of things of hand tracking. And again, I don't think that is a big enough thing. If they reduce latency slightly by a certain amount, then it won't be a big enough thing to bother people enough to complain. There will be people that will look into it and think, look, I've got a lower quality quest here. And the funny thing about this as well is that, like, in some ways people will remain with the original quest and be perfectly happy with it because it's got OLED screens, it's got an IPD adjustment, in the same way that people kept with the CV1 of the original Oculus Rift, because they wanted the OLED screen and the IPD adjustment. So there could be those kinds of people as well. But yeah, I think if they put in these small improvements, as you mentioned, Anthony, into this new version, then I don't think it's going to cause too many problems. I just don't think they'll shout about it. It will just enhance the experience slightly.
Yeah, well, from a developer standpoint, though, you might have some developers that are like, man, I wish everybody had this new quest, because if everybody had this new quest, when I'm programming this game, I could make it more, I could do more with it. But because I have to account for everybody that has the original quest, and they might have the first version of hand tracking, I'm like held back a little bit. And that's where you get into like the people that do want a more advanced. I mean, there's people that will swear that this is going to have an XR2, it's going to have a new level of graphics and everything. Do you think there's any possibility at all for that? And well, the question I want to ask you regarding that is like, because I'll talk to these people and I'll be like, wait a minute, man, do you really want developers making multiple versions of games? Like, don't they have enough to figure out as well? And now but their argument is, it's not that big of a deal. It's just, it's a high, like this one has higher end textures. Like it's almost like they're going to be able to program it automatically and it'll just scale to either version. And so it's not going to cause this big problem.
Yeah, I think if they can do it so it scales, look, this product is definitely not going to have like an XR2 or anything like that. I think the most I'm willing to stretch to is the fact that they could put in like a Snapdragon 845 and run it at a native 80 hertz, because that involves zero work from the developers. They're just running at a higher frame rate. So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's the most they're going to do. They're going to make it run at a native 80 hertz with a 845, and that's it. I don't even think they'll do that. But, however, I will say that there's some questions about the screen. So if you've got an 80 hertz, maybe chat can help with this. If you've got a native 80 hertz screen like the Rift S, then can that just be sort of used to accommodate a 72 hertz refresh rate rather than the native 80 hertz easily? Is that's my question, I suppose. I don't know about that. I know you can change refresh rates on certain screens, but I don't know if that particular screen could work in an accurate way with 72 hertz.
Carrie MGVR in chat says, if this is an XR2, I'll pre-order it the instant it's available. Like, see, there's people that just can't wait to spend money. And, I want to be on the cutting edge with everybody else. I really do, but I don't think so. But Gary, one thing, so we've always heard, though, I mean, ever since these rumors started popping up in the last couple of days, there's been this 90 hertz thing, 90 hertz, 90 hertz, 90 hertz. Now, I know from your standpoint, you're thinking, well, they have this screen that they used in the Rift S, and they probably got millions of them sitting somewhere in Wuhan, right? So it just makes sense that they're going to throw, but I don't know. I think there could be a totally new screen. Like why can't it be, like, don't you think there's advancements in screens that happen as well since the Rift S launched? Like there could be a pretty significant advancement in some screen technology.
Yeah, there could be. I mean, again, it's entirely possible. There's a lot of speculation that we just don't know about this kind of stuff. Yeah, I think you're right. There could be that. I will say that, again, the Rift S has only been out for a year, and the fact is they've probably been designing this product for that period of time anyway, since the original Quest launched, and they were probably sourcing different screens and seeing what was possible. I just think that if this product is what we both think it probably will be, a refined version of the Quest, let's say that, then I just think they'll go for the path of least resistance, which will be to use the Rift S screen. There's no way of knowing. I probably am not correct in that, but I don't know.
Okay, yeah, and a few other things just to kind of wrap this discussion up a little bit is so availability. Do you believe? Do you think it could be September 15th? Do you think it could be one of those things? It's available now. It's available now. Oculus.com, September 15th. Or if you had to bet big money on this, on when this is going to be available and what the price is going to be, what would be your thought process there?
I'd say I think the announcement will be September. I think, in all honesty, I think the launch will probably be early next year. However, people are sort of persuading me that perhaps it could be like a November release, which would make sense because it's like a standard traditional console launch month, really. But yeah, I don't know.
I think, well, here's the thing, though. I think the thing about it, as soon as you start talking about a new product, you are going to hurt sales of your existing product. There's just no way around it, because there's people that were going to buy a Quest this month that and all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, Quest 2 now they're on hold, you know what I mean? So I think if they announce this thing on September 15th, it will be available this year. There's no question in my mind about that, because it just, otherwise don't announce it. Why let it? You're gonna announce this before Christmas, but you're gonna be selling the old Quest, and everybody, on the one hand, you can say, well, only enthusiasts are really going to know about this, and your average Joe Blow is just going to Walmart or Costco, and they're not going to know that some Quest 2 was announced. They're not paying attention to Oculus Connect 7. But at the same time, I think once this cat is out of the bag, it's going to be on Verge and Gadget. Everybody's going to cover it everywhere, CNET, blah, blah, blah. And once that's out there, don't you hamper your sales if you don't bring it out pretty quick?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. With regards to that, I mean, we don't know how Facebook and Oculus make their decisions based on this, and we see from the console market, they announced their consoles a year, 18 months ahead of when they're actually coming out, and of course, it's probably harming their sales as well. They just don't care, and maybe Facebook don't care. It probably is coming out this year. I will acknowledge. I'm not sort of adamant about when I think this thing is going to come out or not. On price, what do you think about price? This is an interesting thing. I was watching Sebastian on MRTV, and he was saying 249, and I think he's from what Carry MGVR was saying as well, 249, 199. I personally don't think this will ever be 199. I think it's almost certainly going to be 299 at the lowest, and I hope it's lower, but I think that's just the most realistic.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm seeing people in chat as well, and 249 to 199. Risky Biz says 199 would seal the deal. I'll tell you this: if they announce 199.99, if they announce that,
that would be huge.
Well, yeah. Also, I forgive them for any decision they're making about the strap and anything, and even IPD and all of it. All is forgiven. It's if you make this $199, look, I understand what you're going for here, and I'm okay with that. I mean, even if it's not even comfortable or anything, if you're chopping the price of the Quest in half. You're gonna double sale, more than double sales, especially right before Christmas, especially in this environment where everybody's stuck at home anyway, and these things are selling better than they
and they can't keep up with sales anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't see why they'd go to cut it in half. That doesn't make it. I mean, I know it's going to be probably slightly lower functionality than the original in very menial ways, in my opinion. Look, the IPD thing is a big deal, don't get me wrong, but the fact is I don't see them having any incentive to really lower it down to 50% of the current one. I think 299 is the lowest it can be, and potentially more than that.
My guess would be it just makes sense. 299. We were able to shave $100 off this thing. Do you believe there will be two flavors, 64 gigs and 128? Also, wait, a bonus question as well. Do you believe the original Quest is going to disappear into the mist, never to be seen again, once the stock of that runs out?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I don't see why they would continue with the original Quest. But what was your original? What was your first question on that?
What were we saying? $299. I don't know.
Whatever. No, I do think the original Quest, they're going to sort of manufacture this is probably part of the reason why we were hearing at the beginning of this year why they were struggling so much to manufacture enough Quests to keep up with demand, because they were already starting to ramp up the pipeline in order to get this product off the ground as well. So that could have something to do with it. But I think once they've got the refinement down, then they can manufacture this and just go hell to leather with it. Now they know what to expect. And here's the question: 64 or 128 gigabytes? I don't see why they would change that really, other than perhaps double it, 128, 256. Although there's not really much need. You mentioned this earlier, Anthony. The applications that you get are relatively small anyway, so there's probably not a great deal of need to have like a 256 gigabyte Quest.
You know,
But
I wonder, does the Quest do? I remember there was like one of these Microsoft Xboxes. What it would, it had a smaller storage, like one of the like Slims or whatever, and it did this thing that was like really kind of intelligent. Like it basically would keep track of what you were playing, and like if you hadn't played a game in a long time, like it would basically like delete that game automatically, but you could hit a button and reinstall it, but it kind of did it in an intelligent manner, like oh, you haven't played this game in freaking 9 months and it's 18 gigs, we're going to delete it secretly, kind of, and then if you really need it back again, you can re-download it right away. And so they could do some clever things like that. Here's another wild card. Do you think there will be any other kind of weird things that come along with this? Like, will this Quest be capable of having multiple accounts on it simultaneously? Or do you think there's any other kind of extra things that could come along with this? I mean, probably not, but...
yeah, I mean the multiple account thing, that's like software based anyway. So I would love that. I would love them to put multiple accounts on it, to have different saves and stuff like that for my kids and myself. And yeah, that would be a big deal, just on like a functional level on me on a daily basis of using it. So yeah, they could do that kind of stuff. Again, software based. I think we've heard rumors like of them updating the interface and stuff like that as well. So that would be welcome. Not that I think the interface is actually that bad. I think it serves quite well for what is on the Quest anyway.
Alrighty. Well, why don't we bounce off of this topic real quick? I wanted to touch on something else that I've seen recently, and so I asked you about this before we did the show, and you haven't seen this, but Michael Abrash gave a talk. Well, it wasn't, I mean, he was like in his own office or whatever. It was like a Zoom kind of a thing. And the images that I'm popping on the screen here were images that were running while he was doing this discussion. And it's kind of the same old stuff that we always get from him. Like Oculus Connect 7, he gave a long talk. I mean, at every Oculus Connect, you get this long Michael Abrash discussion where he kind of basically goes over the state of VR and how many years it's going to take to do this and to do that, and like where timelines are and all that. And he got into it a little bit during this topic. But the thing that I really like about this, one of the things that they did kind of discuss in here, is Oculus. I'm convinced that Oculus knows like what they really need to do. They understand this thing from a greater understanding that a lot of companies, they're talking about varifocal lenses here. I mean, we're not going to get that with this thing here, but like more like Quest 2, Quest 3. One of the things that they've kind of highlighted in this discussion here, they're talking about avatars, body tracking, hand tracking. They're talking about tables and chairs, scene recognition, live maps, a wider FOV. So like the three people that are doing this business consultation thing where they're co-working together, where you can see everybody, the environments. They get into the live maps. And one of the things I like is at least Oculus. I mean, again, we really wish there was some other companies that were as highly invested in this as they are. But they understand this. They know where it needs to go. Like they realize we need to put your body in VR. We need to have your facial features in VR. Your cheek muscles, all of these things, and they're working on it. And it's going to take time for all of this to happen. But at least I'm strongly encouraged. Like they want it to be a situation where eventually you walk into a room, you put a VR headset on, and the VR headset is just automatically scanning the room already. And it's looking at chairs and tables and dogs and cats with machine learning. Like, I mean, how different are people's rooms? Like you would, here's a little thing where they have a thing of the human eyeball, and then they start talking about the live maps and everything as well. But how hard is it going to be for machine learning to like recognize what tables are, what chairs are, a cat that's moving through your space, a dog that's moving through your space? I don't think this is rocket science. I think we can eventually start to figure these things out, that they're going to make these more advanced avatars. We're going to get into a situation where the video phone never really happened, right? Nobody really cares about FaceTime. Like, I remember, when I was a little kid, it was like, yeah, we're going to have video phones in the future. And, you'd have these different movies where it's like they have a phone and it has a screen and it's like, oh man, that is so cool. And that never really happened. I mean, it never really blew up like we thought it might blow up. But I think when we get into this world of VR, where you're basically having holograms of other people come into your world, and so grandma can be sitting on the couch with you. Here's an example. One of the things that they shown here was kind of their live maps, where in real time they're going through these different rooms and stuff, and it's automatically like figuring out where your walls are, where the pathways are. And so eventually we're probably going to have VR headsets that start to learn your house. They know your kitchen. They know where they know where objects don't typically get moved. They're static objects. I think one of the things that was mentioned recently on the Oculus Quest subreddit, it was in some of the firmware update, but there was some talk about a couch guardian, that there could be this new guardian that takes into consideration your sofa or like your lazy boy chair. Because how many times have you ever just wanted to grab your headset, you just want to sit in a chair and do something, but it's like, oh, I got to redraw my tracking, so I put the chair in the middle and I'm drawing this tracking area around my chair. Now I can sit in my chair so it isn't going to break anything. But what we might have is like where it can notice your sofa, it can notice your recliner or whatever, and it's like, oh, okay, here's a standard chair, you're going to be sitting in it, I'm going to, we understand this. But I'm very encouraged by this. I got to imagine you're encouraged by it as well. Unfortunately, a lot of these things are just going to take a while to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think from what you were saying at the beginning of that, Anthony, these Abrash and all of those people, they know the end goal of this stuff, and it's part of the reason why discussing the Oculus 2 or whatever it is, the Oculus Quest 2, is a little bit. I sometimes feel like people that will say, why are they doing this? Why are they making this decision? Why are they doing this thing? This is the wrong way to go. Although valid, I think it's sometimes a little bit strange, because they're looking at the individual stopgaps in order to get to this end goal. Whereas as VR enthusiasts, a lot of people are just looking at, I want the next greatest headset. I want this to go in the direction I want it to go in, whereas Oculus are looking at it in a wider picture. And I think this proves it. I think having people like Michael Abrash at Oculus and researching this stuff, and also giving this video is right up my alley. I'm definitely going to watch this, by the way. I've not seen it yet, but him giving these kinds of talks and just giving some insight into the potential of what this technology can do is absolutely vital. Most people won't be interested in this, but the people that are interested in it are the ones that can probably see where the potential of this technology will go in the future. And I think it's really important. I think I'm going to watch this anyway and see what I think.
Yeah.
There was another YouTube video, actually, just quickly. I don't know if you saw this a couple of weeks ago. It was from somebody who works at Oculus. They work with Michael Abrash, and they were talking about the advancements in optics and stuff like that. That was on YouTube a couple of weeks ago, and that's quite an interesting video as well. I've not got the details of it, but I'll see if I can find it and put it in chat.
Okay, I'm going to switch over to our web browser here. I think I still got you and everything, just to show people the video I'm talking about here. So it's this one here, Michael Abrash. It's computer vision for the future of social presence. And this was, it says 1 month ago, keynote given at the 4th workshop on computer vision for AR VR. So CV4 AR/VR held in conjunction with CVPR 2020. But yeah, this is the one. It's like a 23-minute video. And he gave a keynote, and he's like in his office or at his home or something, and it's like a Zoom kind of a thing, and he just goes through the whole, like, he walks you through the whole thing about how kind of what they're looking at in the future, the Facebook the advanced avatars, all the things that they're doing there. And so what I did is I just grabbed some clips from that in terms of like when it wasn't just his face on the screen. But yeah, absolutely, everybody should check this out. It's good information. I mean, the number one thing that I'm encouraged by is they understand, they understand where this future is going. And so
yeah, I'll post the link in, but for anybody that watches this after the fact and the chat's not there, there was another talk which is worth watching. I'm going to watch this one, Anthony, but there was another one, Electronic Imaging 2020, which was on YouTube as well. So yeah, you can check that out, and it's that goes into a lot of detail about various things with regards to this. And like you say, it's encouraging that they seem to have the same. Well, of course they've got the same idea of the potential of this technology, but they make it exciting by revealing that they are working on this stuff for the future. This is not stuff that is necessarily like 50 years away. It's stuff that might be 10 years away, and that's encouraging.
Yeah, it's especially encouraging too because we remember the early days of Oculus. And in the very early days, like if you go back to the Barcelona, like 2015, when the Vive was very first unveiled, but this is back in 2015, and when the Vive was like, yeah, lighthouses, and we've got like a freaking hollow cube that you can basically be inside of. Like at that time, Oculus was like, no, we've got two little sensors and it's front facing. Remember, all the experiences were there was a time where it seemed like Oculus was kind of scared to death of room scale. And so it's amazing that they've made this ginormous sea change about that. And they realize, because eventually we have to get to a day where it's not a danger, an extreme danger, to put a headset on when you've got other stuff around you. Because that's one of the things that we get into is like people will tell me, I don't got a big giant open space where I can play VR. And like, I feel like you got to have a big open space to play VR. But like what they're showing in here is they're saying, yeah, we're going to have to know where tables and chairs are, where things are, so that you can use VR. Like you could put a headset on, you can be in this room, you can go to another room, and it quickly analyzes things. It figures things out. It knows where the ceiling is, the floors, the walls. It can analyze windows. Think about it. Eventually, it's going to understand where your TV is. It's going to understand where the fish aquarium is. And it's going to know that these are especially concerning little areas, where like you start to get close to your TV and it's going to start showing up in your actual VR world. Have you done this? Go ahead.
But no, I was just going to say it's one of the reasons as well why this kind of stuff like world mapping, the SLAM aspect, simultaneous location and mapping of the world around you, which is something that Magic Leap focused on, and Oculus Quest does it as well. To a certain extent, but it's one of the most difficult things. A lot of people focus in on like AR glasses and stuff like that, how they'll say that the optics are really difficult to do, which of course they are, in order to get a good digital image, a wide field of view and this kind of stuff. But half of the battle, at least half of the battle, is getting AR technology that can recognize the world and contextually recognize the world that you are in at that moment and put everything in context of how you need it to be placed. Exactly what you were talking about there, Anthony. So it needs to know this is a table. It needs to know this is a cat and this kind of stuff. And that's it's just as big a problem. This is why a lot of this stuff that we all want, AR glasses, is so far away. It's not just optics. It's this technology which is processor hungry and is going to be. I personally believe, I still think it's a long way away before we get what we all want, but they're they're showing us the direction they're going in, so that's
Yeah,
good.
at least they know where they need to go. So at least that's not like, I don't know that
Yeah.
HTC knows where we need to go, but at least Oculus knows. What I was going to ask you about is on the Valve Index. Have you ever, because for the longest time on the Valve Index, I never played around with the cameras, like with the pass through or any of the different things that the Valve Index is capable of. And one of the things that it's capable of is like it can do this like guardian thing. Like I was pretty freaking impressed by it, where it does this guardian thing where I'm in my play space and it's VR there, but as I kind of get to my outside edges, I start seeing this like Tron, like a Tron layer of like physical objects, like doors and walls, like, and that is actually really cool, especially like when it gets more advanced and it's more logical about that, because then you can have your sofa, you can have your lazy boy, you can have a big 80-inch TV, and you could be in the VR world. And if you start to get a little bit closer to one of those objects where you're within range of possibly smacking it, then it starts to come into your VR world, but it doesn't have to come in a super abrupt kind of fashion. It's almost like it's like this weird kind of mixed reality thing that is going on, which is actually really cool. You should try it if you haven't tried it.
Yeah, I tried it briefly. I don't really use that kind of stuff too much, but I did try it because they did an update on the Valve Index as well, where it gives you like stereo image. Like I think the Rift S does that as well, actually. But like a stereo image of your real world, and you can have varying degrees of that. So you can have like a straight pass through where it looks, it's full color and that kind of stuff, or you can have sort of variations on it as well. Yeah, I think it's a valuable thing to have. I've not really dabbled in it too much, but I can understand why it's a good feature to have in a headset.
Yeah, I'm excited for the future when we get into some of these things. Let's see, we've been going for a while here, so we'll end this show pretty soon here. But I thought I might ask you. There's one other thing I wanted to ask you about. Well, one of the things I was thinking about in terms of like Oculus, and I think I misspelled presence on here. But one of the things I was thinking about in terms of like, what is it going to require for a company to make a really high-end standalone AR or VR headset? And I was thinking of some of these different things, and it's like, for example, think about a company like Samsung. Okay, so Samsung is a company that has a lot of good technology, and like, how wonderful would it be if they were the Pepsi to Oculus's Coke, and they were putting as much emphasis into this thing as Oculus is, or a company like that, right? And I was thinking, what are the critical things that these companies need to do to like really be a part of this AR VR game? And I think the number one thing long term, like, you've got to have your own store, because if you don't have your own store where you're selling stuff, you're never going to have the necessary incentive to spend so much money on research and development, and to also be willing to take a loss on your hardware. And so if you don't have your own store, you just don't have enough incentive. And this is a problem. So like, you look at somebody like Qualcomm. Qualcomm has done some incredible things with some of their future looking stuff. They've got these standalones that they're going to be licensing off to other companies that can elaborate on their prototypes with really high resolution scene recognition and understanding, 7 cameras, eye tracking. I mean, they kind of understand it as well, but they don't have their own store. And so they don't have their own store, so they're making that as something that they could sell off to someone else. But what about like don't you think that like you got to have your own store, or you're never going to have that much of an incentive to like really go all in on research and development?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. The thing is, for any newcomer, Oculus are doing something like, especially with the Quest, which they've got no there's no competition at the moment, realistic competition, really. And part of that is the fact that they've got this big ecosystem, which is less about PC VR and more about their own standalone headset, which is the App Store, and I think you're absolutely right. I think this is absolutely critical. The only other way around this is, rather than having companies that are bringing out their own individual app stores, is to have some kind of generic app store from a company like Steam or something like that is then providing content to all of these extra standalone headset manufacturers.
But that's not gonna. It's not gonna work though, because you gotta have that greedy incentive. You got to have that incentive that you're going to make a ton of money, because
I understand.
You know who might have an incentive is Epic Games. Like if they were ever to, they have their own, like they now have a store, right? But like you think about it, okay, so Apple, of course, they have their own store. Facebook has their own store. Sony has their own store. So all of these companies, they have their own store. So now they have an incentive to be leaders in this category, to spend the necessary money on research and development, and also be willing to take losses on their hardware. I think it's real critical. The second thing I think is going to be hella big here is what we were just talking about in terms of like talking to grandma or having your buddy. Like I really think like multiplayer gaming, and there's going to be a revolution when we get our bodies are full, these avatars, we have eyes that are darting around, and you're talking to your buddy. He lives in New York, you live in the UK, but it's like you're in the same room. It's like you're right there with him. You see his body language, you see him slouching in a certain, like you can read things from him that you could only read with that presence. And so I think it's going to be just massive, absolutely massive. Like when we get those legit avatars that they're doing at Facebook Research, when that is actually available, that's when I think we need a VR headset that is like $99, because eventually we need VR headsets that are meant for people that are never going to play a VR game, but they're going to want to do that, They're going to want to have their grandma sitting right on the rocking chair right by them, where it looks exactly like grandma and she's there. I also think a metaverse. I mean, everybody's going to have to make one of these. I'm sure Apple is working on this right now as we speak. And then I think if you really want to have it all dialed in, you have your own operating system and you have your own GPU CPU combination, which the only one that has this right now is Apple. They're the only company that has all of it. They're the only company that has their own operating system and their own GPU, CPU. Now, Facebook is working on their own operating system right now. Probably not going to be available till Quest 3 maybe, but they're going to have their own operating system, but they're not making their own GPU, CPU. They're still going to outside companies like Qualcomm. And they can continue to do that. But if you have it all in-house like Apple has, I think you've got a tremendous advantage there.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is with Apple, I think you're absolutely right on all of these points. I think with Apple, if Apple get into the game, and maybe I've mentioned this when I've been on your show before, Anthony, but I'm still sort of the opinion that I don't think they're going to really focus on VR at all. I think it's going to be AR for them, and that's the future of where it's going. And what you were saying there about a device will at a certain point need to be $99. I'll say by the time a device gets to that point, I think they'll have justification to ramp up the cost, because it will be the kind of device that will replace a mobile phone. And that's why it will become an essential part of daily life. From Apple's point of view, I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, that would be for an AR headset that you're like wearing a lot of the day, and it has battery powered, and all that kind of a thing. But what I'm thinking more is like, for example, like some people thought when we first got these Oculus Quest stuff, and the Go got canceled. You know, some people thought, oh, is this Go 2? You know, because it was white and everything, and the strap looked very much like a Go strap. And I think there's a couple little holes that are on the body that are in the same places where the Go is. And so some people thought, oh, maybe this is actually a Go 2. And I've made this argument that with the Go being eliminated, eventually there should be some kind of headset that is for your uncle or somebody that is they're never going to play a video game. They don't care about video games. Okay. But they're excited about this whole, like, they're excited about seeing someone in their room and they can talk to them and it's their, you know, their good friend and it defy distance. You know, we've heard about this defy distance thing, like, you know, it's Oculus's tagline for some of their commercials. And with the advanced Facebook avatars with the body tracking and like, you know, when they add that body tracking and they have the advanced avatars and everything, and then they also are able to do mixed reality where they understand where your tables are and where your sofas are and where your chairs are. That, to me, that's the next game changer, because then everybody that has a headset on that's in the living room, like you might go to a Christmas party and like half of the people in the Christmas party aren't there physically. Like I could imagine this future. Have you ever seen that TV show Upload that was on Amazon Prime where they kind of get into weird stuff?
Yeah, I've not yet, but I do want. I'm not on Amazon Prime at the moment, but I am going to for that very show actually.
It's pretty cool. I mean, there's only like 8 episodes or whatever, so you'll get through it pretty quickly. But no, I envision this future like 10 years from now. You're having a Christmas party, and it's like half of the people there aren't there, but they're there because. But then, of course, everybody has to have a headset that's sitting in there, so that's a big stretch. But
to me, that future, to me, that is more going to be with AR glasses. I don't see that with people sitting around with VR headsets on in the near term. I think that's a longer play, really, in my opinion. And look, if they could do a $99 VR headset, which is very light, very low cost, it's got all the functionality which I think is essential, like 6 degrees of freedom, but it enables your uncle or whoever to socialize and be part of a social group at a distance, then that's a valuable thing. I'm not sure. I just feel like what you're describing there in terms of like the avatars, these realistic avatars, which I've seen and they look fantastic, that's a long way off in my mind for a product, in terms of a product being released. And by the time we get to that point where a product is released, I think we'll have other things in terms of AR which are probably going to be more desirable to people like that have an inclination to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, AR absolutely makes way more sense, but there's the cost. Like how quickly is AR, like we don't right now as we speak, there isn't an AR product. Like I can't go to Best Buy and buy an AR product. I can't go to Amazon and buy a popular AR headset. That does not exist right now. We've got Magic Leap, we've got HoloLens, but it's not for regular people. You gotta order it. It's thousands of dollars. We need a product that is under $1,000. That is like a mainstreamable kind of AR product. We don't have that. Now that's being rumored, you know, Apple, there's lots of rumors that are out there. We know Facebook is very aggressive in this area as well. Google is obviously working on this as well, especially Magic Leap kind of petered out. So I'm sure Google is stepping up their efforts privately. So everybody's going to be involved in that, but it's going to take a long time for that to get to any kind of an affordable range. One nice thing about VR is you can create AR within VR that could be better than almost any AR headset in existence, just by the sheer fact that it's going to have a much bigger, like you go to AR, you're trying to have glasses, and so it's miniaturization of everything. And I mean, you know, full color pass through. Like I can imagine when we have an Oculus Quest 2 that is a legitimate Oculus Quest 2, some of the things that it needs to have is full color pass through. So you're looking around your room, it's got to look clean, crisp, and it's got to be, you know, the perspective has to be corrected, and so it doesn't look weird or any kind of like fish lens kind of thing. And then you can add AR on top of that, and you could have 120 degrees with AR in a VR headset where it could do anything that a Magic Leap is doing, anything that a HoloLens is doing, but better because now it has full FOV, and the cost can be under $300 within a couple of years, I think, because like just think of the Oculus Quest right now and imagine if it didn't need to be a gaming platform in any way. No controllers need to come with it. It'll just have hand tracking. And this is for the people that are non-gamers. I think we eventually need to get to headsets that are specifically designed for non-gamers, but they're 6 DoF. They got built-in hand tracking. They've got pass-through, full-color pass-through, and you know the avatar stuff. I don't know exactly how all that's going to work out, but it's got to have that as well. I mean, yeah, you know, we're talking 5, 6, 7, 8 years away, maybe, but I think it will really. I think it's going to revolutionize the world. Like I believe in it.
On the one hand, I mean, I think I do agree with you overall, Anthony. I think on the one hand, I would love that to happen. I think part of the issue is the reason I sway over to AR being the only chance of this kind of technology getting over to the mainstream adoption is simply because it's going to be more socially acceptable by wearing glasses. The issue you're going to have is trying to persuade my mum or my uncle to put on a brick onto their face, and even if that brick is very, very narrow and very much more refined, they still feel like they're putting this thing on their face which is not as socially acceptable as other things. I think that's the biggest barrier to that kind of technology that you see. I think it could work. Don't get me wrong. I think what you're describing is something that could very legitimately work and be a valid product. I just don't know if I could persuade friends and family to use that device.
Yeah, but okay, I understand the social implications of it. I understand exactly what you're talking about here. And a lot of people will argue, you're in VR. Who cares what you look like from the outside? No, people care. This is a problem. Like people do care. I've brought VR headsets over to parties, like a birthday party or something. I've brought a VR headset over, and I'm having people sample it, and there will be an occasional person there that I'm like, hey, you want to try it? And they're like, no. And a big part of the reason is in their head, they're thinking, oh, I don't want to look all goofy and silly. What if someone takes a picture of me when I'm wearing one of these crazy things? You know, I don't want to look all silly and goofy. And yeah, I know that sounds ridiculous to a lot of us. It's like, you're in VR. Who cares? Who cares what you look like from the outside? But people do care. I totally understand that. I totally get that. At the same time, however, I think we're going to get to a technological level at a certain point where you put this obnoxious brick on someone's head and they're going to realize that they're going to be like, holy shit, like, whoa, it's like I'm on the deck of the Enterprise and this person's sitting right here and they look like the real person. Their eyes are darting around. I know this person. They're hundreds of miles away. We're talking like we're in the same room with each other. I think at a certain point, it's going to be like a tipping point. It's going to be like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I believe we're going to reach a certain technological point where it will overcome the fear factor of looking silly, goofy, or whatever, because it's just going to get so effing compelling where people are going to be like, F it, I don't care. This is so good that I'm willing to go down that road. And it's going to be a stopgap until AR is going to be affordable enough where everybody can do AR. Because, I mean, when are we going to have a $99 AR headset that does everything we want it to do? That might be 2055, you know?
I don't think we'll need it by that point, because we spend $1,000 on a mobile phone and think nothing of it. So I think by the time that we do get these true AR glasses, then there'll be a replacement for mobile phone, and we'll just treat them in that respect, really. But yeah, I mean, look, part of me, the thing is, none of us know which way this thing is going to go, and I do agree. I would like the kind of product that you're describing there, Anthony. I think that would be great, and it could win people over just by being as compelling as it is, which might be enough. It might be enough. I don't know.
Yep. All right. Well, you know what? Great discussion. Thanks so much for joining me, Reckoner. Awesome to have you back. And once again, we did want to remind everybody that we have the next great American author in front of us right now. Not American, but he did write a book, The Memory Engine, and it will be releasing on August 27th. Pre-order is available now. Go ahead and check that out. It has to do with AR, VR, comedic in nature, but also kind of serious as well. Maybe this will be optioned into the next Amazon Prime TV show, The Memory Engine. That would be the dream,
we
right?
Won't hold our breath. Won't hold our breath about that. But yeah, if anybody wants more information on that, then you can go to GaryWalkden.com, and all the information's there as well. An audiobook will be coming out in around October as well. So follow me on Twitter. Actually, that's the best place. Reckoner VR on Twitter. You'll get all the updates from there.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode of VR365. Thanks so much for joining me, Gary. It was fun to talk about the rumors. All hell is about to break loose pretty soon. So I guess we'll find out how this thing plays out. But that was really enjoyable. But that'll go ahead and do it. So we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Later.
Bye.
Alrighty, yeah. So, welcome everybody. This, of course, is pre-show. If you're with us in chat, let me say hi to people in chat. Okay, but yeah, we just do this pre-show thing, and then hopefully people will start filtering in as we go along. Give it a few minutes. And yeah, so we're going to get into Quest talk today, pretty much. Quest 2. I still think that's kind of crazy. Quest 2, really?
We'll see. You don't know. It's only been out. It's been out a year, hasn't it? We'll get into that anyway.
Yeah. Fluke is in chat, so we do have someone in chat. Somebody has seen us. And so we'll be going here in a minute. But yeah, I thought what we could do on the Quest 2 thing is let's kind of talk about what we know about the leak and stuff, the stuff that we do know. And then really honestly, what I think is the more interesting discussion is more about Facebook's strategy with this, because there's so many different ways they can go with it. And then their strategy with PC VR and, kind of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So we could do that, but we'll just cover some of the base facts at the beginning. So going back, I don't know if you remember, but going back to that Bloomberg report, I was going to look this stuff up before we started here, but I was trying to get these other videos ready. But when we first got the Delmar rumors, I think the first one was a Bloomberg thing that said that, was it 20% lighter and 15% smaller, or do I have that flip-flopped?
No, as far as I'm remembering, it was 20% lighter. I remember that figure, but I don't know about the smaller. Yeah,
I think that was the original thing that I heard there. And then, of course, we had the different Delmar stuff.
Yeah. It's there's a lot to say on it, isn't there? I've been reading. I'll tell you what, though, going back and looking at stuff on Twitter and the YouTube shows that have been coming out over the past few days, this is like had so much discussion around it, like people speculating left and right. Some people are insisting it's got to be an upgraded version, others are saying no, look at the evidence, it looks like a side grade kind of quest and this kind of stuff. But I don't know. You see, if we're going to get into the discussion about how Facebook or what they plan to do with VR, it's where do we go with that? I mean, I don't know if anybody can even guess what their plans are.
Well, you know what? Michael Abrash, I don't know if you saw this, but this is maybe a couple of months back. Michael Abrash gave a talk that was like, it was quarantine talk, so he was like in his own little office or something. Did you happen to see that one where he...
no, I've not seen that, no.
Okay.
No.
I mean, it's a lot of stuff that he talked about before, but it's just a newer talk. I have some snippets from that video, not like him talking, but like just background stuff. But we'll get into that. So anyway, we got enough people in chat, so we can go ahead and officially start this. So let me go ahead and let me throw on a miscellaneous trailer here in the background. I can do an intro, and then we'll get going. But yeah, dude, I'm really glad that you're able to join us on this one. Looking forward to this. Let me pick a miscellaneous trailer here. Dis Ninja. How about that one? Okay. Alrighty, so I'll go ahead and do an intro. Ready, set, go.